September 13, 1982. 41,000 feet over the eastern Mediterranean, west of Syria. The cockpit is cold even through the pressure suit. Condensation beads along the canopy frame as Captain Sergei Volkov steadies the MiG-25 PS nose, the Foxbat's engines howling like twin furnaces behind him. At Mach 2.3, the aircraft feels less like a fighter and more like a missile with a man strapped inside. The horizon is a thin blue curve. Below, the sea glints in the afternoon sun. Volkov's radar scope glows amber. He expects to see nothing. That's the routine. High-speed patrol. Western border. A show of presence. The Foxbat is built for this brutal speed, towering altitude, straight-line dominance. For years, NATO pilots have whispered about it like a ghost. A Soviet interceptor that can outrun anything, climb higher than everything, and disappear before a missile ever reaches it. Volkov believes the myth. He was trained on it. Then a tone cuts through the cockpit. Not a warning. Not a spike. A lock. Sharp. Steady. Unmistakable. He frowns, glancing at the range marker. Can't be right. The contact is still beyond 80 nautical miles. At that distance, Western radars shouldn't even be painting him clearly, certainly not tracking him with fire control precision. The tone doesn't waver. Volkov's gloved hand tightens on the stick. His navigator, Lieutenant Alexei Morozov, leans closer to the scope, recalibrates, checks again. Same result. Same impossible geometry. Who is locking us? Volkov asks, keeping his voice flat. Morozov doesn't answer immediately. He switches bands. Filters clutter. Clears it again. Single contact. Morozov says slowly. High. Fast. Closing. A pause. American. The word hangs in the cockpit. Below them, unseen but very real, an F-15 Eagle rides the thin air like a predator. Its APG-63 radar is not searching anymore. It has found them. Not with brute power, but with clarity, pulse Doppler precision, look-down capability, track-while-scan logic that turns distance into inevitability. In the Eagle's cockpit, the lock is calm. Routine. The pilot doesn't even break breathing rhythm. The Foxbat is a bright, clean return. Big, hot, loud. The radar computes closure rate, altitude differential, weapon solution. No missile is fired. There doesn't need to be. Back in the MiG, the tone grows louder. Volkov checks his instruments again. Airspeed stable. Altitude holding. ECM active. Nothing changes. The lock stays glued to them as if the American radar has reached out and grabbed the aircraft by the spine. This is not possible, Morozov mutters. The MiG-25's own radar, Sapphire-25, sweeps ahead in narrow arcs. It sees nothing. No firm return. No target it can engage. The Foxbat is blind beyond its design envelope, built to chase bombers, not dual fighters. Its missiles are heavy, fast, and useless without a solid track. They are being hunted by something they cannot see. Brake right, Volkov orders. The MiG rolls, engines roaring as the aircraft swings 30 degrees off course. G-forces press them into their seats. The lock remains. Morozov's voice tightens. He's still tracking. Another turn. A shallow dive. Chaff bursts into the slipstream. Thin silver clouds flashing away behind them. The tone doesn't change. For the first time, Volkov feels a flicker of something he doesn't like. Not fear, calculation collapsing. The Foxbat was never meant for this. It was built to sprint, not to fence. To outrun threats, not to sit inside their envelope before even knowing they were there. How far? Volkov asks. Morozov checks again. Swallows. 70 miles. 70. The Americans are not just seeing them. They are owning the airspace around them. Volkov keys the radio, calling the other Foxbat in formation. No response. He scans left, then right. The sky is vast, empty, and suddenly hostile. Command doctrine flashes through his mind. Do not engage without advantage. Do not linger under unknown fire control lock. Preserve the aircraft. Preserve the pilot. Disengage, Volkov says. He shoves the throttles forward. The engines surge. Mach climbs. The MiG-25 accelerates like it was born to run, climbing higher, faster, trying to outrange the invisible hand gripping it. For a moment, just a moment, the tone wavers. Then it comes back. Closer now. Morozov looks up from the scope, eyes wide. He's staying with us. Volkov understands what that means. Speed is no longer sanctuary. Altitude is no longer safety. The Foxbat's greatest strengths have just been neutralized by something that was never supposed to do this, never supposed to reach this far, see this clearly, control this much sky. He banks east, toward friendly airspace. The lock finally drops. Silence floods the cockpit, broken only by engine noise and breathing. No missile, no explosion, just the echo of a reality neither man was prepared for. They don't slow down until the coast is behind them. Later, in debrief rooms and intelligence summaries, the incident will be described with careful language. Disengagement, unfavorable conditions, electronic superiority. But among the pilots, the story spreads differently. The day the Foxbat realized it was being watched long before it could ever see. October 4, 1982. Voronezh Air Base, Soviet Union. The briefing room smells of cigarette smoke and stale coffee. A map of the Eastern Mediterranean is pinned to the wall, corners curling. Red grease pencil lines mark patrol routes. Blue circles indicate NATO air activity. Someone has added a new symbol in black, an angular wedge, next to a handwritten note, F-15. Captain Sergei Volkov stands at attention. Flight suit still creased from the locker. His helmet rests on the floor beside his chair. Across the table, 3 senior officers listen without interrupting. An intelligence colonel taps a pencil against a folder labeled Foxbat Operational Encounters. Volkov recounts the engagement exactly as trained. Altitude, speed, heading, radar indications, the moment of lock, the impossible range. When he finishes, the room is quiet. "How far did you say the lock began?" the colonel asks. "Over 80 nautical miles. Volkov replies. A murmur ripples through the room. Someone exhales sharply. "That exceeds published American capabilities," another officer says. "Yes," Volkov answers. "It does." The colonel flips open the folder. Inside are transcripts, other pilots, other dates, different airspace. Similar language repeats itself. Early lock, persistent track, unable to break contact without disengaging. The pattern is unmistakable. The MiG-25 was never supposed to be vulnerable like this. Designed in the 1960s to counter high-altitude intruders, it was a machine of extremes. Titanium skin, massive engines, blistering straight-line speed. Western analysts once believed it could outfight anything in the sky. They were wrong, and now the pilots know it. Weeks later, the next patrol launches. 2 Foxbats climb hard, streaking upward through contrails. Radios calm, voices clipped. Volkov isn't flying this time. He listens from the ground, headset pressed tight, following the telemetry scroll across the board. Passing 40,000, one pilot reports. Then hesitation. "Ground, I have a lock." "How far?" the controller asks. A pause. 75 miles. No one speaks. Everyone knows what's happening. "Confirm hostile type." 15, the pilot says. "Eagle." The MiGs turn away almost immediately. No probing. No challenge. Just retreat, afterburners lighting as the aircraft flee back toward Soviet-controlled airspace. The Americans don't pursue. They don't need to. Word spreads fast in squadrons across the USSR's western frontier. The Foxbat, the untouchable interceptor, is suddenly being seen first. Not occasionally, not by luck, but systematically. In mess halls and locker rooms, pilots talk in low voices. They compare notes. Some laugh it off. Others don't. Everyone remembers the sound of that tone. Steady, confident, predatory. It's not the missile that scares them. It's the knowledge. The F-15 doesn't have to fire. Its radar alone changes the fight. It dictates distance, timing, and outcome before the Foxbat even knows a duel has begun. Behind the scenes, Soviet engineers scramble. Radar specialists re-examine SAPFIR limitations. Electronic warfare officers test new jamming profiles. None of it changes the fundamental problem. The MiG-25 was built around speed and altitude assumptions that no longer hold. The Eagle can climb with it. The Eagle can see it. The Eagle can wait. In the United States, the encounters are logged quietly. No press releases. No boasts. Eagle pilots debrief, nod, move on. To them, it's confirmation of what the aircraft was designed to do. Dominate beyond visual range, control the sky through information rather than brute force. But intelligence analysts notice something else. After late 1982, Foxbat patrols change. They fly lower. They fly shorter. Sometimes they don't fly at all. Satellite imagery shows MiG-25s parked for days, then weeks. When they do launch, they stay closer to home, hugging ground control coverage, avoiding known Eagle orbits. In intercepted communications, a phrase begins to appear more often. Do not provoke. By early 1983, Soviet doctrine quietly adjusts. Foxbats are reassigned. High-risk intercept zones are reduced. The aircraft that once symbolized reach and intimidation is now treated like a fragile asset, powerful, but only under controlled conditions. The pilots feel it most. One veteran Foxbat commander puts it bluntly during a closed-door session. We used to own altitude. Now altitude belongs to whoever sees first. No one argues. The panic is never public. No aircraft are officially abandoned. No pilots admit fear on record. But behavior tells the story better than words. When the radar tone appears early, too early, Foxbats turn away. When Eagles are rumored nearby, missions are delayed. When the lock comes, pilots choose survival over pride. The myth hasn't just cracked. It's collapsing. And somewhere over the Mediterranean, an F-15 cruises in clean air, radar sweeping wide, waiting, not to shoot, but to remind its adversary that the fight was decided long before either pilot ever touched the trigger. March 17, 1983. 38,000 feet over the Black Sea. The MiG-25 RB hums with restrained violence. Engines throttled back just enough to keep heat within limits. Lieutenant Colonel Viktor Sokolov sits rigid in the cockpit, eyes scanning instruments he's known for over a decade. This isn't his first Foxbat. It's his fourth. He has chased intruders, outrun missiles, climbed higher than most men on Earth will ever go. Today, he expects another quiet patrol. The radio is calm. Ground control vectors him along the boundary line. Weather is clear. Visibility endless. Then the warning tone appears. Not loud. Not urgent. Precise. Sokolov freezes for half a second, long enough to recognize it for what it is. Fire control lock. Long range. Stable. Clean. His mouth goes dry. Confirm source, he says. The navigator in the rear cockpit doesn't respond immediately. He cycles the systems, checks frequencies, resets gain. The silence stretches. Finally, American, F-15. Bearing 270. How far? Another pause. 80 kilometers. Sokolov doesn't swear. He doesn't shout. He simply exhales, slow and controlled, like a man realizing the rules of a game have changed while he's already playing it. 80 kilometers means the Eagle saw them first. It means the Eagle is already inside decision space. It means every maneuver Sokolov makes from now on is reactive. He banks left, shallow. The lock remains. He descends. The tone follows. Chaff blooms uselessly behind them. Silver strips tumbling in sunlight. Nothing works. For the first time in his career, Sokolov reaches for the manual, mentally, instinctively, and finds no solution written there. The Foxbat's strength is escape, but escape only works when the enemy needs time to catch up. This enemy does not. Break mission, he orders. The MiG turns back toward home airspace, engines screaming as Sokolov pushes them toward redline. The aircraft accelerates brutally, heat gauges climbing. He doesn't care. He just wants distance. The lock stays for another 30 seconds. Then it vanishes. The cockpit goes quiet. The silence is worse than the tone. It leaves room for thought, for imagination, for the realization that if this had been war, real war, he would already be dead, and he would never have known when the missile left the rail. After landing, Sokolov sits alone in the cockpit longer than necessary. Ground crew wait. No one rushes him. They've seen this before. That evening, in a dim operations room, pilots gather without orders. Someone pours vodka into chipped glasses. No toasts. No jokes. One younger pilot finally speaks. If they can lock us from that far, what happens when they decide to shoot? No one answers, because everyone knows. The AIM-7 Sparrow doesn't need to be perfect when the geometry is that good. And the Americans are already working on something better, whispers of a missile that can guide itself, that doesn't need constant illumination, that turns escape into illusion. By summer, Soviet flight behavior changes again. Foxbats no longer patrol alone. Escorts are discussed, then dismissed. Nothing can keep up at altitude. Missions are shortened. Routes are altered daily. Some pilots request transfers. Others simply stop volunteering. The Foxbat is still fast, still high, still terrifying on paper. But in the cockpit, confidence has drained away, replaced by a constant expectation of being watched, of being measured, of being allowed to leave. Across the ocean, Eagle squadrons refine their tactics. They practice long-range detection, silent tracking, cooperative engagements. They don't chase. They position. The goal isn't the kill, it's control. An Eagle pilot describes it later off the record. You could feel it. They knew you were there. You could tell by the way they turned away. No dogfight footage ever surfaces. No wreckage. No official confrontation. Just absence. By late 1983, intelligence photos show rows of MiG-25s sitting idle, canopies covered, tires slowly flattening on cracked concrete. The aircraft hasn't failed mechanically. It has failed psychologically. The Foxbat was built to terrify bombers. It was never built to be calmly, confidently seen. August 9, 1983. Ramstein Air Base, West Germany. The briefing room is dark except for the projector's glow. A grainy radar playback fills the screen. Thin lines, moving blips, altitude numbers ticking upward. An F-15 call sign sits steady at the center. Far out on the edge of the scope, another return appears. The instructor pauses the film. That, he says, pointing, is the Foxbat. The Eagle pilots lean forward. They've seen this tape before, but it never gets old. The return is large, bright, almost arrogant. The MiG is flying the way it always has, fast, high, straight, confident in speed. The instructor taps the frame again. Watch the timeline. The tape rolls. The Eagle detects first. Tracks assigns priority. Holds fire control lock without transmitting more energy than necessary. The MiG doesn't react. Not yet. Now pause. He freezes the image at a specific second. This is where doctrine used to say the Foxbat was safe. The room is quiet, because the Eagle is already inside lethal range. Back in the real sky, the consequences are subtle but absolute. Every advantage the MiG-25 once relied on has been quietly stripped away, not by a faster aircraft, but by better awareness. The Foxbat can still outrun the Eagle in a straight line, can still climb higher if given time, but it can't break physics, and it can't outrun information. The APG-63 radar doesn't care about bravado. Sees heat, speed, closure. It turns distance into data and data into dominance. The APG-63 radar doesn't care about bravado. Sees heat, speed, closure. It turns distance into data and data into dominance. By the end of 1983, NATO intelligence notices something unprecedented. Soviet intercept patterns no longer press boundaries. There are gaps, wide, deliberate gaps, where Foxbats once roared daily. Analysts mark them with question marks. Inside the USSR, the truth is less ambiguous. At Lipetsk, test pilots fly controlled scenarios against simulated Western radar profiles. The results are damning. Even under ideal conditions, the MiG-25 is detected early. Jamming helps only briefly. Maneuvering helps even less. The airframe was never meant for this kind of chess. One engineer says it out loud during a closed session. We built a sword. They built a mind. The room goes silent. The solution isn't to fix the Foxbat. It's to replace it. Design bureaus accelerate work on a new interceptor. One that can maneuver, see farther, think faster. One that doesn't rely on speed alone. On paper, it looks promising. In reality, it will take years. Until then, pilots are instructed to disengage at the first sign of long-range lock. Not evade. Not challenge. Disengage. In squadron-ready rooms, that word hits harder than any official admission of defeat. It means the airspace no longer belongs to them by default. It means initiative has shifted. Some pilots resent it. Others quietly accept it. All of them obey. The last recorded Foxbat patrol near known Eagle stations occurs in early 1984. The aircraft climbs, detects a lock almost immediately, and turns away without crossing the boundary. The Eagle never changes course. It doesn't have to. From then on, the MiG-25's legend exists mostly in museums, parades, and export brochures. Its real battlefield, high-altitude interception against modern fighters, has moved on without it. The panic wasn't loud. There were no maydays, no flaming wrecks tumbling from the sky, just a growing understanding in Soviet cockpits that if an F-15 ever chose to pull the trigger, the Foxbat would never know which second sealed its fate. And that knowledge, quiet, inescapable, was enough. May 21, 1984. 36,000 feet over the North Atlantic. The F-15 cruises in near silence. Engines set to military power. Fuel flow steady. Major Thomas Hawk. Reynolds rests 2 fingers lightly on the throttle. His radar scope shows a wide, clean picture. Friendly traffic. Empty lanes of sky. Nothing urgent. Then a contact appears at the far edge of the screen. High. Fast. Reynolds doesn't move. The APG-63 paints the target clearly. Big return. Straight line flight. The signature is unmistakable. Foxbat. He assigns track priority and watches the computer do the math. Closure rate. Aspect. Altitude advantage. Missile solution. The system chirps softly. Lock achieved. No drama. No tension spike. Just confirmation. Reynolds glances outside. The sky is empty, serene. Somewhere beyond the curvature of the Earth, a Soviet pilot is hearing the same tone. One he now knows all too well. Seconds pass. Then, exactly as expected, the Foxbat turns away. Reynolds doesn't pursue. He never planned to. He breaks the lock and continues his patrol, already thinking about fuel state and the next handoff. The encounter doesn't even make the highlight reel. It's logged, analyzed, filed away. Another non-fight. By the mid-1980s, this is the norm. Eagles no longer intercept Foxbats in the traditional sense. They deter them. Presence alone reshapes enemy behavior. In Warsaw Pact briefings, a new phrase circulates quietly. Zone of American radar dominance. It isn't tied to geography. It moves with the Eagles. The Foxbat, once designed to challenge high-altitude intruders, has become one itself, probing cautiously, retreating quickly, never committing. The pilots are skilled, disciplined, and painfully aware of their limitations. One declassified Soviet after-action report summarizes the shift in a single line. Speed without situational awareness leads only to earlier defeat. The Americans read similar conclusions on their side, though phrased differently. The F-15's greatest weapon isn't its missiles or its engines. It's the fact that the other side knows they're already behind. Years later, when a MiG-25 finally falls into Western hands intact, engineers confirm what pilots already felt. The Foxbat is magnificent in its niche and nearly helpless outside it. Its radar is narrow. Its missiles are brute force tools. Its airframe resists maneuver. Against bombers, it's a nightmare. Against an Eagle, it's a question that's already been answered. By the end of the Cold War, the Foxbat's patrol days are mostly over. New aircraft take its place. New doctrines replace old bravado. But among those who flew it in the early 1980s, one memory remains sharp and unwelcome. The moment the lock appeared. Not close. Not fair. Not escapable. That was the moment Soviet pilots understood something profound and irreversible. That the sky no longer belonged to the fastest aircraft. but to the one that could see farthest and decide first. And from that moment on, the eagles didn't need to chase. They had already won.